Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, January 30th, 2019. I am Dave Biddle. Very happy to be joined by the People's Champ, Matt Baxendell. Bax, it's freezing cold here in Columbus. Everybody's off school. My kids are off school. My wife's a school teacher. She's off school. It's like -5 right now, and that's not with the wind chill. Like with the wind chill, it's like -25 here. How you doing this fine morning, my friend?
Oh, just spectacular. I hope we don't have any kids coming in for official visits today. It wouldn't be a good day for Ohio State to convince anybody to come here from the South, that's for sure. It's the coldest day of the year, so everybody stay inside. Don't get frostbite.
Yeah, that's right. Just stay inside and listen to the Bucknuts Morning 5 and read Bucknuts all day. That's what you guys should be doing. All right, let's start off with Keandre Jones transferring. We'll delve in really deep about the linebackers here in a minute, the 2019 linebackers for Ohio State. But they are losing Keandre Jones. No surprise. I mean, with as bad as the linebackers were last year, he was a junior and he couldn't even get on the field. Now, there is a new group of coaches this year, so maybe things would have been different. But Keandre Jones transferring to Maryland, just your thoughts on that development, Bax?
I'm disappointed he didn't stick around through the spring because I really wanted to see how he would do with a different staff. He's a guy that I think a lot of us always expected to have the opportunity to get on the field, and it just, for whatever reason, didn't work out. If you remember when Urban was talking about him whenever he flipped to Ohio State, Urban said he thought he'd be a future captain at Ohio State. So they were clearly really high on him. It just hasn't worked out at all with him. I guess my big regret with him is going to be we just didn't get maybe a chance to really see what he could do. And he's going to go to Maryland and he's going to do well right away. And everybody's going to be sitting here going, oh, gosh, Bill Davis leaves us another present. I mean, it's inevitable he's going to play well for the Terps. So, I guess in the end, I'd love to have seen him stick around through spring. Maryland would have taken him after spring, too. But it seems like he had his mind up to go. And, if there's ever an example of a kid who, if he was being completely candid, probably regretted his decision to change his college, it would probably be Keandre Jones, who was a longtime Maryland commit, flipped late to Ohio State, and now you see him going right back to Maryland at first opportunity. So, it is what it is. I guess there's always going to be losses whenever you have a coaching change, but I really would have liked to have seen him compete through the spring.
Yeah, same here. I do like the linebacking core they have coming back. The linebackers were a weakness last year. There's no getting around it. But I think a lot of that was coaching. Greg Schiano having them crowd the line of scrimmage, and it just didn't work. And finally, it took him forever to finally back off that and mix things up a little bit more. I thought Malik Harrison really came on toward the end of the year. I think he's going to be a stud as a senior. I know everybody's down on the other two returning starters, Tuff Borland and Pete Werner. I actually think Pete Werner is going to have a pretty good junior year. Tuff Borland, I don't know. We'll see about that. I think Taraja Mitchell might push him for the starting middle linebacker job. I know there's some other up-and-coming kids that they like, Dallas Gant, Kayvon Pope. So we'll see what happens. Just, do you think, am I going too far here? Do you think the linebackers could actually be a strength of this team next year, especially when you talk about new coaches like Al Washington coaching the linebackers and Greg Madison as the co-DC and Jeff Hafley as the co-DC, even though he'll be mostly with the secondary? Could the linebackers actually be a strength this fall, Bax?
Well, I hope so. I'm not optimistic, though. I don't share your optimism on Pete Werner. I saw him on the field a lot last year where you didn't really see him, if you know what I mean. He was just there. I'm more inclined to think Tuff Borland has a better chance to be a big contributor next year, purely because I think Tuff being healthy would be a big benefit for him. Tuff looked like he was running in quicksand for most of this year. He just wasn't very fast, and you can't do that in today's modern game of football. I like the talent they have, though, and I do believe fully that they were horribly coached. That I don't think anybody debates that after having watched this team last year or even the year before, where you had a guy like Jerome Baker regress from a likely first rounder to a mid-third rounder. Billy Davis just, maybe he gets through better to adults than he does to young men. I don't know. But the linebacker coaching left a lot to be desired. And like you mentioned, he was put in a bad position by Greg Schiano walking the linebackers up to play defensive tackle it's amazing how much better these guys looked whenever you let them line up 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage and read and react to the football. But I think there's a ways to go beyond saying anybody beyond Malik Harrison is going to be a strength for this team next year. I like Harrison. I thought Harrison was solid to good most of last year. But let's see what happens with these other positions. Does Baron Browning get better? You mentioned Terada Mitchell and all these other young guys we got there. One of them may emerge. So yeah, I'm optimistic because I do think the new coaching staff has the chops to get it done. And it seemed like every year when Hal Washington was up at that school up north, they'd pop out another guy who was a pretty decent linebacker you'd never heard of before. So that's a good sign. But until it happens, I'm going to sit here and say linebackers are going to be a concern for me. I mean, really, that's one of the biggest concerns in the team for next year until we actually see them perform on the field.
On the recruiting front, let's talk some couple of offensive linemen that we've been talking a lot about. But Dawand Jones, Ohio State had their in-house visit with him last night. And Doug Nestor, still up in the air with him. But sounds like with Nestor, it sounds like his family really wants him to go to Ohio State. So we'll see if family wins out, or I know Doug's torn. But just what do you think is going to happen with Dawand Jones, and what do you think is going to happen with Doug Nestor?
Well, Doug Nestor, to me, is an early indicator of whether Greg Studraw is going to manage to hold on to his job for another year or two, because Stud's big thing for class of 2020 is to bring in a bunch of offensive linemen. So Ohio State's pretty low at the position. If he loses out on Doug Nestor, a guy who's been committed here forever, and supposedly his waffling was because he wasn't sure OSU was keeping him or not, it doesn't bode well for Greg Studrawa, especially when Kevin Wilson's going to be there working with the offensive line even more this year. I think Ohio State's looking at this with Dawand Jones is saying we need bodies. I mean, he's a pretty capable kid, and we need bodies. We need people who can be in here and help compete. And I think it's going to be entirely whether or not Jones wants to come to OSU and sit for a few years before he could potentially get the field. I don't think he's the kind of kid who's going to make an immediate impact. But the Nestor situation to me is one where the kid's wide open, and I think the family's trying to keep his center of gravity being in Columbus. And, if you look where he lives, too, Columbus is the closest major program to him. You got Virginia Tech's about equidistant to the south, but it's hard to justify to your parents to go twice as far away when they're already happy on a school that's half the distance away. You know what I mean? So I'm optimistic OSU keeps Doug Nestor. And then as for Dawand Jones, I think Ohio State has a pretty good chance at the kid. I mean, if you look at his profile of a recruit, right? He's a kid who he's being chased by everybody's gonna see the 3-star, right? They're gonna go, oh, he's a 3-star kid. He's not even a top 10 kid in Indiana. Well, look at who's offered him. I mean, it's USC, it's Penn State, it's Ohio State. That's pretty respectable offer list. And I think Ohio State's in a spot where, again, proximity benefits them. He's from Indiana. Indianapolis is less than 3 hours from Columbus. Penn State is like 9 hours from there, or 8 hours from there. USC is an airplane flight away. And you could easily argue that Ohio State is going to be able to give him as many opportunities, if not more, than those other places. So when the dust settles, it really wouldn't surprise me if both these guys ended up in this class, especially knowing the desperate need Ohio State has at this particular position.
I'm with you 100%. I think they're going to land both Nestor and Jones. We'll see what happens. Obviously, signing day exactly 1 week away from today. Now the late signing period. It used to just be signing day, but hey, we'll get over that. I kind of liked it when it was just the one signing day, but hey, whatever. Got to move on. Speaking of moving on, let's close the show, unfortunately, with some Ohio State basketball. Buckeyes played at Michigan last night. We knew it was going to be a tough game, probably their toughest game of the year when you have to go up to Michigan. They're number 5 in the country. They beat Ohio State 65-49. The Buckeyes hung tough in the first half, let Michigan get some momentum going into the locker room at halftime, and then it snowballed a little bit in the second half. Again, 65-49. Ohio State just can't shoot the ball. Buckeyes now 13-7 on the season overall, just 3-6 in Big Ten play. I think they have to get to at least 500 in Big Ten play to even be on the bubble for the NCAA tournament. If they can get to 500 in the Big Ten, that could bode pretty well for them. But, when I look at this team right now, Bax, I think of 3 letters, NIT. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, you're not. I don't think you're wrong at all. I think that's where this team is trending. And it's not because they lost last night to one of the best teams in the country, which is, hey, whenever Michigan, being the basketball school that it is, puts together the quality of team it does, and OSU still in a bit of a gap year, if you will, you'll probably lose that game. But again, Michigan's a basketball school these days. They're more focused on the hard court because they can't win at football. So that's okay. I just the way I look at this OSU team is if you look at its upcoming schedule, it doesn't bode very well for them. You said 500 in the Big Ten. Okay, let's start by actually beating Rutgers and Penn State the next two games. None of those teams are that great. You got to win those games, and then from there, if your next four between Illinois, Indiana, Penn State, and Rutgers, you can get to 3-1 out of that. You've got a chance. You don't have a great chance, but you've got a chance. We've seen with this Buckeye team though, having lost at Rutgers was just really rough, and I think that was the game that really started the downfall of the season because that Michigan State loss at the start of the year, whatever. Michigan State's good. Then they lost to Rutgers, and that led to a loss to Iowa, led to the loss to Maryland, and then everything's kind of gone downhill from there. They've had some injury bad luck, and again, I don't remotely hold it against Chris Holtmann if this team ends up being an NIT team, like you said. You know why? Because this was last year he held a team together with like chicken wire and duct tape, and somehow they made the tournament. And then this year, he's got even less in place because he had roster numbers, and really in basketball, your recruiting begins 2 years out because of how young these guys get recruited. When that class that's coming in this year arrives, OSU is going to be a Big Ten favorite kind of team because of the talent that's immediately arriving. But if this team makes the NCAA tournament, it would be an unbelievable success based on the way that January has gone, which has been an absolute horror show for the Buckeyes.
Well, the People's Champ is an unbelievable success, that's for sure. Thank you very much to Matt Baxendell. I appreciate it, Bax, and I appreciate all the listeners out there for tuning into the show. Stay warm. Have a great day. Let's hear that Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.